Welcome to Danny Designs. I'm Danny, level 100, and today I have a question that I want to answer, and that question is, does Boss Key Productions have an identity crisis? A few months back, I made a video about my impressions on the game Lawbreakers, the first game ever to be produced by Boss Key Productions. My thoughts were overall pretty lukewarm on it, but I didn't hate it, and I thought some people would like it. And I was right, a handful of people are dedicated to the game. However, I realized I had a lot more reasons why I didn't like the game. In the process of making that video, Boss Key Productions announced that they will no longer be working on Lawbreakers and instead announced a new game called Radical Heights. And of course, this game is a battle royale game. My overall reaction was, I'm gonna give it a shot. I really don't like being the guy who immediately is cynical and hates something. Usually I try to find the good in things. And originally I was going to make a video giving my overall impression of Radical Heights. However, this led to me thinking, does Boss Key Productions have an identity crisis? In this video, I hope to answer that question. These are my thoughts and opinions, and none of this is intended as a personal attack to anyone at Boss Key Productions or the studio itself. With all that out of the way, let's get right into it. One of the things I didn't talk about before was how much I did not like the overall aesthetic of Lawbreakers. I might have touched on it a little bit, but I feel like it just came out as sci-fi generic. A lot of things didn't really stick out. The most memorable or least memorable thing I can mention is the Deadzo logo. Now this simple design is what I would call way too simple and way too vague. What is it? I feel like it's trying to be something that's super memorable, something akin to the smiley face from Watchmen or the Nirvana logo, but it simply doesn't do enough to stand out. What does it tell you about the game? There's blood, it's sad, it's kind of dark, I guess, but nothing about it really tells you of what it is. With the Watchmen logo, it becomes iconic through the narrative of that story. The Nirvana logo is wavy and kind of warbled, it's smiling but sad, right? The eyes, it reflects the music of the band. And I find this really odd when you have something like the Gears of War logo that is easily one of the most iconic logos in gaming. It's not just a skull, it's a skull wrapped in a cog, and the cog is blood red. You're a cog in the war machine. This is something that pops up when you die, it's in every single game, it's iconic. Now you might be saying, but Danny, when you die in Lawbreakers, the Deadzo logo pops up. But it still doesn't really stand out from anything. The Deadzo logo, as far as I can recall, didn't have anything to do with the game. It was just something that was kind of marketed to us. And you might say, okay Danny, well, if you don't think the Lawbreakers logo is good, why don't you come up with one? And when the game was first announced, they actually had this swirling vortex of energy merging. I was like, you know what, that's iconic. If you did a logo with the swirling vortex of energy and put a big Lawbreakers on it, I think that would have done a much better job. In a somewhat infamous clip about Lawbreakers, Cliff Bleszinski, the head of the studio, said this.
You know, Overwatch feels like it's kind of skewed, towards a kind of an anime fan type vibe, right?
I find calling Overwatch a anime-inspired game as kind of a weird way to dismiss it. If we were to compare anime to Overwatch, we would see that Overwatch is way more similar to Pixar in its style and presentation. And that's something to consider. Pixar films are way more appealing to a lot more people, and anime, as popular as it is way more niche. Having that Pixar look makes Overwatch way more recognizable and appealing to general audiences. Watching this cinematic, I can easily tell who's the good guys and who's the bad guys, but I can't do the same for Lawbreakers. I've watched the cinematic I don't know how many times, and without looking at the website, I can't tell you who's the bad guy and who's the good guy. That bright, bold style that Overwatch has is just way more readable than what Lawbreakers brings to the table. Looking back at Lawbreakers, a huge issue I had was just the silhouettes of the characters and the character classes themselves. One thing you'll notice that's different about Lawbreakers versus Overwatch is that either faction has an identical class. Let me explain. In the Lawbreakers universe, you have a character, Fang. She has a grenade launcher, medical drones. But wait, you also have Toki, who also has 2 medical drones and a grenade launcher, and they're very similar in appearance. When the game is going rapid fire, crazy, enemies are everywhere and attacking you from all different angles, that chaos that Lawbreakers wants to sell you on as being part of the fun and thrill becomes so chaotic it's hard to tell who's on your side and who's not. I've often found myself shooting at teammates or even having teammates just straight up shoot at me because it was just so chaotic and not in a good way. Let me illustrate this problem. Here are 2 characters, Halion and Kitsune. Now, tell me, which one's the good guy and which one's the bad guy? Well, it turns out Halion is on the law side and Kitsune is on the breaker side. And it's hard to tell in the middle of battle. Both these characters dual-wield machetes, they carry a shotgun, they have a dash ability, a flux blast grenade, and a frenzy ultimate. In Overwatch, Lucio and Mercy look different despite being both heroic characters. Whereas a character like Moira, who is a more villainous character, her silhouette and her pose, everything's different. Speaking of which, if we were just to break things down by silhouette, you'll notice that you can't tell who these characters are in Lawbreakers. When these characters are flying at you in 360 degrees, it becomes very frustrating to tell what's going on. After playing Radical Heights, there isn't much to say. I will say this though, I really like the layout of the underground section of the map, and I thought the mechanic of saving money for later was kind of interesting, but ultimately wouldn't be enough to differentiate itself from its competitors. My biggest concern, however, is the 80s art style that Radical Heights decided to go with. I feel like the 80s art style is just a fad, and eventually that fad's gonna come to an end. Look at a game like Fortnite. They can release an 80s themed season pass and completely blow Radical Heights out of the water. On May 14th, 2018, Cliff Bleszinski put out a statement on Twitter that said Boss Key Productions will be shutting down. The studio's legacy is short-lived, and I know many people on Twitter, on gaming forums, they use this opportunity as a way to make fun of Cliff and the employees at the studio. It's never a laughing matter to me when people lose their jobs. Cliff Bleszinski also went on to show some of the ideas they had for other game projects that didn't get picked up. And you can see that obviously the studio is full of talented, creative individuals. It's a shame that we might never see these games come to life. If you liked the video, guys, please give it a like, a thumbs up. You can check me out on my social media all right here. If you want to help support the show, you can check out my TeePublic page or go to DannyLevel100.com, click on the Amazon ads, and buy whatever you want. By shopping through these ads, I make a small cut of whatever you buy. It's a fantastic and easy way to help support the show. And links to everything will be in the description, all my sources and articles, links down below. And I want to say thank you to everybody for watching. I'm DannyLevel100, and I'll catch you later. Take care. Goodbye.